Hello, and I'm absolutely delighted to be able to present this book review to you before the book goes on shelves on the 1st of April 2020. So, I'll cover the basic 5 chapters that he goes over, and I'll just give you some analysis and a run through, and it's just an absolute delight to read another one of Sam's books on this sort of stuff, because it really just cuts through all the crap that we get and all the sort of lies of religion, and it just gets to the cold hard rational truth about things, and that's something that Sam Harris does like nobody else. Before I go and do this, I should let you know that this review shouldn't affect your enjoyment of the book. The key things and the reveals and things like that, I've kept those out of this review, so you should be able to enjoy the book for yourselves. So it's going to be a fairly quick summary of things, but it'll just give you a flavour of what it is, and hopefully you'll want to go out and buy the book. Chapter 1. You are a product of your brain. Everybody knows that scientists have traced us to our brains. We are our brains. He's quite simply correct during this entire chapter of the book, so we'll just move on. Chapter 2. The unmistakable reality of conscious, irreducible subjectivity. A lot of us skeptical, rational, reasoning, biological robot apes who love science can really fear to tread on the question of what consciousness is. But Sam Harris is like a flaming kung fu tiger. He just aces in his analysis that, as far as we're concerned, there is just consciousness. It's all deeply profound, but without the lies of religion. It's clear and precise in capturing the experience of being alive and the mystery that surrounds it. He explains beautifully how strange it is that physical behaviour should generate our human experience. Chapter 3. How does consciousness arise from the brain? Things start to hot up now in the book as he tackles the classic questions that have theists and the religious running to God for an answer. How can we get a rational take on this? How can we understand consciousness through a scientific and atheistic lens? Well, Sam Harris is a legend because he explains that if the subject were truly an entity, then we would expect to see its effects in and on the brain. But we don't. We can measure this stuff. Therefore, it's probably not an entity that can affect the brain, if it's an entity at all. He does this all in a careful manner that we've come to expect from Sam. Now, some of his critics have pointed out that if the subject of experience is acknowledged as real, then the fact that we acknowledge it logically dictates it has power over the world. But as you and I know, this is naive, wishful thinking. Sam tackles the issue with his usual gusto, explaining the secrets as to how we can explain consciousness without needing to think about a soul, an experiencer, a subject, or observer, and how we can preserve everything about irreducible inner subjectivity and what it has to offer in a rational lens by his new principle of Irreducible Ivity. I want to explain how he does this, but I don't want to spoil the book for you, so you'll have to just buy the book for that, but it's quite honestly amazing. Chapter 4. Why people go wrong understanding metaphysics. Oh, this is my favourite chapter of the whole book. Sam shows his real genius to cut to the core of the issue in this chapter by explaining that the religious concept of God is the concept of the things that we aspire to and lack. We can't deviate from the laws of physics. Scientists have proven that, so we want what we can't have and create the illusion of free will for ourselves out of an emotional desire. God is the ultimate archetype of a power we can't have, even tiny amounts of, because physics is in control of us, and this is the fuel for the fantasy. He explains that the reason we must banish the subject of experience and only acknowledge experience alone is that were we to invoke such a subject, we would be on a path for hypothesizing God. This is how dangerous this sort of thinking is. Any effort to describe human beings as things that know and have power is to talk about human beings in divine terms of knowledge and power. We need to accept the reality that we are puppets of physics. If we were to invoke the idea of a subjective experience, how many would we need? Occam's razor suggests that we shouldn't multiply entities unnecessarily, so we're left pondering the absolutely insane idea that there could be one subject experiencing all human lives simultaneously. Such a subject would surely be God, and surely be you and me and everyone you know. Clearly, this is drug-induced hippie nonsense. This is what Sam shows us we can avoid if we know the pitfalls ahead of time. Chapter 5. The most reasonable way to think about it. The scientific and rational thing to do if you have a theory or premise that goes on to postulate God is to realise you've made a serious error in your thinking, and so you need to remove the part of the system that is throwing off a clean perspective on this. The easiest thing to do here is to remove the subject. Sam has directly experienced being an experience without being a being that had the experience. He has testified to that, though that's not the exact words that he used. So if he can experience the experience he had of not being something that has experience, then the ultimate logical conclusion is obvious, of course. There is no subject, soul, consciousness, or entity of any kind that is non-material that is actually having the experience. There is just experience, and we can understand that from his experience of just being experience, which he didn't experience because there was no entity having the experience, but yet he still had the experience of experiencing not being an experiencing entity. Ladies and gentlemen, no one can do this better than Sam Harris. It's bright lights like Sam that illuminate the dark universe with a light of reason. Critics say that Sam is self-contradicting and difficult to understand, but that's usually because they enjoy Deepak Chopra and don't understand the truth that we are just our brains. That's where I'm going to leave it, guys. Absolutely cracking book. Would completely recommend it, just like all the other Sam Harris books. That man is a machine. Well, of course he's we're all machines, but it's just, we don't like to talk about it, do we? So there we go. There's my book review of Sam Harris's Irreducible Ivity.